Praise be to Jesus. Cardinal Cupich promotes Orthodox modernist unity via compromise. At Mass yesterday, I picked up a copy of the Chicago Catholic, the newspaper for the Archdiocese of Chicago, hoping Cardinal Cupich had written an article, and in fact he did. The more I read, the more my heart was troubled. The article is titled, "How Can We Overcome Polarization?" In the article, the Cardinal talks about his keynote address to a Georgetown University conference last month, after defining polarization as opposed to partisanship. He makes a good point by saying that the path forward is to begin with dialogue that encounters the other person, or those promoting an opposing point of view. He quotes Pope Francis as saying, "Deep down, that the brother or sister we wish to reach and redeem with the power and the closeness of love counts more than their positions, distant as they may be from what we hold as true and certain." This, it seems to me, is a love conquers all position, and as true as it may be, it is not all-encompassing, not when God's absolute truths are called into question, which the Cardinal does not directly do. Rather, he ignores them completely in his article. We have seen the love conquers all position reflected in the Pope's many remarks on ecumenism and European migration, for example. The Cardinal continues with saying this about the secular part of our society. "The point of the American experiment is not for us to be divided by our differences, religious and otherwise, but rather to be united in arguing about them for the purpose of creating new solutions, forging a more perfect union, which is never a done deal, but something we aspire to as a nation." He continues expounding on this topic, but what is frightening is he infers that this principle of unity through dialogue can be applied to the Catholic Church. So you may ask, what's wrong with that? What is wrong with it is that if we believe Catholicism is the one true faith, and that deposit of faith based on God's absolute truths and sacred scripture is written in stone and can never be altered in any way, then unity through dialogue, which leads to compromise, spells the undermining and eventual destruction of the foundation of Catholicism, the deposit of faith. It can never be that the deposit of faith be compromised in any way, for then it would no longer be God's absolute truth. Why doesn't the Cardinal mention God's absolute truth in the article? To do so would not only put absolute truth at odds with compromise, it would present absolute truth as something less important than compromise, and doing so would rightly be taken as a serious error, perhaps bordering on heresy. Some may argue that Christ's commandments of love one another as I have loved you is the primary consideration, and unity through compromise is fulfilling that commandment. How can it be when it contradicts other statements Jesus made in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, where Jesus says that whoever divorces and remarries commits adultery? What the Cardinal proposes is nothing less than reinventing Catholicism through a dialogue whose end is compromise that will put our faith in grave error and lead to the destruction of the Catholic Church. Catholicism, regardless of what the world thinks, says, or does, must always stand firm in its conviction that the deposit of faith is God's absolute truth, and with love and compassion for a suffering humanity, call all people to conversion in Jesus Christ through his one and only true church.